Hello and welcome to another episode and the final episode of our first series of Topline Talks, hosted by me, Owen Myers.
And me, Jenna Mackie.
Today we're absolutely delighted to be joined by a special guest, a chap called Joe Harris, who me and Jenna are delighted to announce that we're going into partnership with in the launch of Mackie Myers America. I have worked with Joe on and off for 10 years. I hired him first into recruitment when he was struggling to adapt to the civvy life, having realised he wasn't quite going to make it in the top 0.1% of the golfing world. And it's absolutely fantastic opportunity for us to bring the Mackie Myers way to a new country. So Joe Harris, we're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
The pod.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great to have you with us.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it, really?
It has. It has. So do you want to give us a bit of a top line overview as to Joe Harris and why you're here?
Yes. Well, you've already given away my secrets with the professional golf career that failed miserably. Yeah. So as you say, 10 years ago, I think you hired me, and I had no idea what recruitment was at the time. And previously had been playing professional golf, which, I think most of my friends actually call it semi-professional, just to try and wind me up. But yeah, that was something that I wanted to do for a long time, and went to Loughborough University to effectively try and avoid studying and play as much golf as I could, which I was very successful at, and don't regret a single moment of that part of my existence, to be honest with you. It was fantastic and very tough as well, which I think provided me with a bit of resilience coming out of it, which was good. But yeah, I'm now sat here a recruiter 10 years later still. So the recruitment career has been more successful than the golf career, I would say.
I think that's definitely something that you've brought into your recruitment career, is that kind of focus and that determination, which I think why customers, rate you so much over the years is your ability to deliver because you're so focused on it.
Yeah.
So, it was all part of the plan.
It was all part of the plan. I mean, I remember someone everyone, to be honest with you, telling me in my interviews when I was joining recruitment, I said it's really hard. And I thought, oh God, this sounds quite tough actually. And when I got into the job, I remember thinking, well, I was pretty much just in tears after the end of some of the rounds of golf I'd been playing after being a professional golfer or trying to be a professional golfer. So actually, it wasn't as hard as everyone made out, and maybe that's why. So,
and where has the last 10 years taken you in your recruitment career? What's that look like?
Started out in London and spent a lot of time in London. So, 7 years or so recruiting finance professionals into a variety of industries, including kind of general commerce and not-for-profit or non-profit, as the US would say. And yeah, scaled teams, worked on jobs that were ranging from as junior as you get to pretty much as senior as you get, and saw a huge variety of different businesses. And I think the thing that I loved about recruitment, because to be honest with you, I had absolutely no idea what I'd got myself into. When I joined the sector, I remember people talking to me about it, and I still really didn't understand it at all. I had 2 offers from grad schemes, Sky, I think was one of them. And I remember turning up on my first day and being like, what have I signed up for here? And it was just the people that basically dragged me through the door, Owen being one of them. And then you realise after about 9 months, it starts to click, and you realise what a fantastic job it is. You've got this exposure to businesses and an urgent need to hire someone. And you also realise, and it's become abundantly clear in the process of joining you guys, that you're advising people on one of the most important decisions in their entire life. And that's remarkable, actually, because you've got broadly a population of 20-year-olds doing that. And I think it accelerates people's understanding of business and people way faster than actually you would ever expect. So it was great, and I love it, and I tell everyone that I love the industry and the job that I do.
I think that's a really good point. I think most people in the industry forget about that element of it. The reason the recruitment industry is a fairly lucrative one is because all businesses, success or failure, is determined by the people that they've got. It's not the product, it's not the service, it's not the offering, the IP, really. It's about the people that are making those things happen. And being in recruitment, you're at that point of supporting that acceleration, if you get it right. And, it's quite humbling actually to be a part of that. So I always say to people, whether you're here, you're just a year, you're brand new, you're a year in or you're 20 years in, if you kind of don't have an appreciation for that you're probably done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we'll come on to this probably, but, a big part of being a good recruiter isn't just about finding a great candidate. It's about finding the candidate that wants that specific job, and that's all part of that.
Yeah.
What are your career ambitions? Are they simple? Are they complicated? How does that work? What are the peripheral things that go around that? So, and then the industry took me to the US towards the end of that 10-year span, which was mainly led by my wife, actually, who's far more interesting than I am. So she wanted to embark on a slightly different or more interesting experience. I think we were both kind of done with London at that point, and we moved to LA. So that's where home has been for the last 2.5 years or so.
How's that been?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the hardest and best things I've ever done.
Okay.
I mean, it's both. It's not probable at all, actually. Amazing to have to move to a new country, set up a life and meet new friends and be away from your friends and all that sort of stuff and family. So very challenging, but incredibly rewarding at the same time. The US, I hadn't even been to LA before I signed up to do this. So that gives
Not even to visit, not even once.
Not even once. So there you go. That's a little insight into how Kate had been. Okay. She told me all about it, and most of it was untrue.
Well, we all know how that relationship works, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Clearly a great salesperson.
Exactly. So when I moved, I actually thought that I might get my big break on the big screen in Hollywood, but here we are. This is probably it.
This is it.
Yeah. So moved out and doing a very similar job actually, recruiting predominantly finance professionals in the LA area, and I guess just the vastness of the US hits you immediately as soon as you get there. And you realise that actually it's not 50 states, and it's a huge cliche. It's 50 countries. So, you realise that quite quickly, and you realise that the lifestyle is different. And I have to say, I absolutely love it.
Can we explore that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Can we talk us a little bit about, I guess, your impressions of the difference in how business operates, UK versus US, and I guess how recruitment operates differently, across the two countries.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking very broadly, I mean, the labour market in the US is incredible. You've got this incredible flexibility. So, the headcount numbers that you see in some of these businesses, they fluctuate rapidly. And when the economy is strong, businesses are hiring, incredibly quickly. And I guess you've got this mix of huge companies, the Googles, the Metas of this world, who dominate the stock exchanges, and the news is often about those businesses. But you've also got these rapidly scaling businesses that fit underneath that. The SME space is absolutely huge. It's often the SMEs that really need the help, because they're either scaling too quickly to be able to hire everything they need themselves, or they've got something specific where they just can't find the candidate quickly enough, and that's where we can come in. So it's amazing. The business landscape is incredible, and you're kind of taken aback by some of the way that some of the businesses can scale at such speed over there. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. Don't hold me to that stat, but something like that. So yeah, it's an amazing place, and that's just one of the states, right? So,
Isn't it Southern California, where the LA area is like 25 million or something like that? So a third of the size of the UK. Like it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
How does that impact recruitment generally across California? Like, what does recruitment look like across the state?
It's very interesting, actually, how, I guess in London's my main comparator, right?
Yeah.
And London's a city where you can kind of get everywhere within about an hour. And that's pretty set. LA in particular is incredible as a place because it is just enormous, right? It's this sprawling city. And that means for businesses, it's very difficult to get around, actually. If it's very difficult for people to commute to you. And we're now in a world where businesses are asking people to be in the office a little bit more. And what we've seen as one of the biggest impactors is actually finding the right people who can do the commute and want to do that commute is a really tough thing. And I know that sounds really like a really basic need, but it's one of the things that makes up the majority of your day, right? So if you've got a commute that looks like it could be 2 hours when it should be 30 minutes and you're not really sure what the difference is there, that's a real challenge for businesses. So in California in particular, I think there's these hubs where actually there's a huge amount of business activity, but finding the right people in those places is pretty tough. So yeah, that's definitely one of the factors. I think as the economy starts to kick on a bit, hopefully this year, the businesses will be hiring at a rapid rate, and it's an accelerated version of what we probably have in the UK because of that fluctuation in the headcount that I was talking about. So yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic, actually.
It's just everything on like a 10 times metric, isn't it?
Yeah.
It moves faster, journeys are longer, decisions therefore are bigger, salaries are bigger.
It's exaggerated.
Yeah.
The US is just exaggerated in every single way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it because of that, to be honest with you.
I mean, obviously, there's a big entertainment industry in California specifically, but that's what people would obviously know. What are the other parts that you found particularly interesting in the sort of sector splits over there? Yeah,
so I think there's obviously a huge entertainment presence, as you say, and that's very in your face, which is great to be around. Having seen Pamela Anderson in a restaurant recently. And then you've got this really interesting mix of consumer goods companies, which are, it's almost the home of consumer goods. New York is probably the other one in the US. And there's these really cool brands that are cropping up, and you've got things like the fitness and wellness space that's taken off post-COVID. Clothing and apparel. There's some brands out there that are scaling to the point of, being international, global brands that are widely recognized. A lot of them with celebrity names, like the Kim Kardashian brand of Skims. So that's a huge sector, and a sector that I've personally had quite a lot of exposure to. And then you've got obviously the tech space is enormous, with the likes of Elon and the various different ventures he's got going on. Which also leads me to aerospace manufacturing. So that there's a real variety of different industries.
Yeah, absolutely. And how does finance operate over there? So obviously, we are all predominantly finance recruiters. What are the sort of nuances of sort of how they approach finance and accounting over there versus your experience in London?
Honestly, it's not that different. I think finance is one of those fantastic industries or fantastic job types that you can have where you can transfer various different industries. And that's the same in California. I think there is a real value on high quality talent, actually, because especially within something like the consumer goods sector, which has had huge supply chain pressures across the last few years, costs have been rising and margins are just being completely squeezed. Actually, I think there's been a real obvious understanding of we need to have the right finance and accounting talent. So, and that doesn't change whether you're in LA or London, really. But yeah, it's a very similar situation. It's absolutely crucial that you have those right people in the business, and that goes for probably wider corporate services as well, and especially some of those scaling businesses. I think it's really about having the infrastructure in place before you get to a point where you end up falling over. And that's the thing that probably I've noticed the most is getting that right is really tough. Actually, it's not just about your systems and stuff like that. It's about having the right people on board who can guide you in the right direction. If you don't do that in time, if you are one of those scaling businesses, that's challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually think London, or maybe the UK generally, has gone slightly the other way. I think where, take consumer goods, margins have got tighter, costs have gone up, managing your stock becomes more important, etc. I think actually a lot of our client base has gone more down the sector route and actually said we need someone that's worked in this space before, because the pressures are so tight to make sure the money works for us. And actually sometimes I think that takes away from just finding the best talent. So it's interesting that you say they've kind of almost gone the other way and just said, like, find a good person and they'll pick it up and they'll do what's right for the business.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a CEO last year about a senior appointment, and we went back and forth quite a lot, actually, and it was a process that was probably typical of 2024. It took a bit longer than it probably should have done. But we got there in the end. And, actually, it wasn't really about the sector for them. It was much more about the right person who could come in and they were in exactly that spot I was just talking about. They'd scaled to 200 million revenue. They'd done that in the last 3 years from being 25 million. And, you talk to him about what was really important for that job. And actually it was about personality, which, only meeting the person was gonna ever do for me to be able to understand what was right or not. And then really understanding, has that person seen a business scale to that size? What are the infrastructure challenges that business has therefore got? And has that person got some battle scars to be able to go in and help them actually understand what they need to do? And we found the right person, and it was really tough. And I think if we'd been really sector specific, it would have probably made that much harder.
Yeah.
Actually. So
I think that's great for talent though, because talent can then change and try different things and do different things, which I don't know if you would agree, but I think that's becoming more of an issue here in the UK, that once you've been in a sector for a few years, after a certain point of seniority, it actually becomes really hard to then change.
Yeah, absolutely. The flexibility of America or the US is incredible. And I think they embrace having a bit more of a flexible approach, which is great.
What are the other kind of challenges and opportunities for talent in, like, particularly the California market where you operate?
I think people have decided that the criteria for which they move jobs is absolute. And I think that's probably a global challenge as much as anything. I think some of the big corporate recruiters have even acknowledged that in some of their results recently. So, getting someone to accept a job is harder than it's ever been.
Yeah.
You have to really understand the motivators, because they are absolute. People are not flexing. I've just said America is flexible, but actually the candidate market at the moment is probably the least flexible it's ever been, in my opinion. They are really quite demanding, and rightly so, because they do hold quite a lot of the power in any situation. And you really have to understand that, because if they're going to accept the job, then you have to get most of those factors right, and there's almost no point in them going to an interview if the factors aren't right. So and that's at every level, from the CFO role I was just talking about to someone I placed at entry level recently. That's the most important factor.
So, I mean, Hollywood is the land of origin stories.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to talk a little bit about Mackie Myers US. clearly you've had an itch to scratch, and given our aspirations to build something meaningful, etc. Here we are. What's the plan? Mackie Myers US, Joe Harris.
Yeah, here we are. So very excited, first of all, to be launching this. The plan is to cover the wider US, but first of all, focus on Southern California, which is a market I know. I think that's a big enough space. I think 25 million people, as you said. So I think we can probably focus on that to start with. Look, I think there's a lot of recruiters in the world now, and I think you've got to know what you are and know what you aren't. The US market is made up of these really well thought of search firms and something called the staffing industry. And I think we will probably sit somewhere in between that, to be honest with you. So, we can help with everything from junior roles to senior roles, temporary, permanent. But we will probably try and specialize in that kind of middle bracket to senior appointment bracket, probably, where you are either probably a scaling business who really needs support because actually you don't have a fantastic TA team like Meta or Google or whoever. And you need someone who can really understand your business. And because they understand your business, that recruiter can then find talent more quickly and also find talent that's going to accept a job if you make them an offer. So that's the first angle, probably. The other angle is probably the really tricky jobs where either you're recruiting a CFO, a controller, and you don't want to get that wrong. And it's a senior appointment, so you need someone to go out and meet with every single candidate, spend time with them, have a coffee, understand the motivations and be able to screen people effectively. Or it's a really specific kind of accounting search, for example, or specific job where you need someone to be able to identify the talent that maybe perhaps a TA person who is a generalist, doesn't have the time to do, probably.
Yeah.
So those are probably the two angles. And that's probably what we'll focus on from the start, covering broadly corporate services, and I've got a bit of a favoritism for accountants. So probably focusing on finance and accounting.
Very good. And I guess, obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about this and, how we're going to, differentiate ourselves against the market as a new entrant, etc. How do you see sort of the Mackie Myers proposition and what we're all about as a company having an impact locally?
We are going to be a business that is scaling. So we're going to understand the challenges that a lot of the clients that we're talking to have. And what you're going to get is a significant amount of experience that will feed into every single search that you run with us, right? So, the way that we will conduct this is, your partnership with us is long term. You are incredibly important to us, and we are not looking to make a quick buck here, actually. And I think that's a really important message, because I think the recruitment industry gets a bad name, sometimes rightly so.
Yeah,
I think, and I think we are a sales business, but we're also a business that needs to partner successfully with our clients, because otherwise it's just bad business. So I think that's the thing, that's the offering. The offering is we are small, scaling as a business. We can offer the service that comes with that, but we're also going to be big enough, across the UK and the US to be able to support in exactly the same way a big corporate could. And that's pretty exciting, actually.
yeah. It's been awesome, hasn't it, since starting? We have scaled with a lot of other businesses. So like from day one, we've worked with these companies to where they are now over the last 4 years or so. And we have been on a really similar journey. And there is something about that working relationship that you then build with the individuals, the CEOs, the CFOs, whoever they are, the founders, that is very, very different to what it has been like in previous companies and previous employers.
Yeah, and I'm, I've met many of these businesses that are of that kind of SME size, and I'm very excited to be part of one, to be honest with you. So, having the extra layer of understanding is going to be pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we probably should touch on it. We did discuss whether we should or shouldn't, but obviously the LA fires have been quite a big factor across California recently.
Yeah.
What has that meant for people, business, talent employers across the piece?
Yeah, it's been a tough month or so in LA for sure. I live, luckily, unfortunately, not in an area where I'm severely impacted, but close enough where you can see it happening in front of your own eyes. These are places that you go on a regular basis at the weekend. You've got friends that live there, and it was highly concerning and pretty sad, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think the impact for some people will last a long time, years, if not longer, if not their entire lifetime. Sorry. So I think that is hard to even understand. I think the short to medium term impact on businesses is going to be a bit slow, probably for the next couple of months. And I think people will really, work out whether they want to live in a place where, fires are such a high risk. But, LA is this place where actually it's the people that have come together to raise money to look at rebuilding some of these homes and communities that has been pretty overwhelming, actually. So, it's been a tough month or so, but I think LA will bounce back, and Southern California will bounce back from it, pretty hard, because I think the people won't let anything else happen, probably.
I think also more broadly, I mean, it's a part of the world which has extremes, right? You've got earthquakes, and it's essentially a desert, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a thriving part of the world.
One of the things that you guys do is, I think you plant a tree in the UK for every single placement you make. I've already looked into something where we can plant in wildfire reforestation zones. So that's something where I would love to do something as we kick this off to support that effort. But that's important to me, that if I can do something by setting up a business in that area that also supports that relief effort, that's actually what I will want to focus on, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. Everyone in the London office is asking us when they can fly over to LA to see you, which, given Rishi Sunak isn't probably getting rid of his private jet, it's probably a bit more difficult to get over there. So, but yeah, exciting. And we're looking forward to bringing the Mackie Myers experience to America, and hopefully enjoy the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
Well, you are our last episode of Series 1, so you are our final Topline quiz guest.
Excellent.
I thought, given obviously you're going to be working, with Mackie Myers in partnership, it's actually probably a bit important to get to know you, and maybe a few US related questions as well.
Sure.
So
my general knowledge is absolutely terrible. So,
you'll be happy to know there is no general knowledge in here. So, Joe Harris, are you ready for our Topline quiz?
Yes, I'm ready.
Question number 1. If you weren't doing this job, what would you be doing?
Well, it probably wouldn't be professional golf based on my failed career. So I would say either working as a sports agent.
Nice.
Combination of golf and recruitment, maybe.
Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or probably like manual labour. That sounds ridiculous. But I love the idea of doing something that just is, I love a task like hoovering or ironing So, maybe something just that,
Cleaner.
yeah, cleaner. Who knows?
Did not anticipate that. Very interesting. Learn something new every day. Best thing about joining Mackie Myers?
The people.
Excellent. And biggest difference in your opinion between the UK and the US markets?
Probably the scale and speed at which these businesses need to hire. There's a lot of businesses in the UK that hire at a pace that is relatively steady, actually, in comparison to what is happening in the US. And it's sometimes actually quite alarming to see how quickly people need to hire their talent. So, that's probably the main one.
Speed and scale. And then I have 5 quick fire questions for you. So, question number 1, East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast.
Golf or cycling?
Golf.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Elon or Jeff?
Oh, that's a tough one. Elon. Go to Mars.
Bold.
I know.
Very bold.
That's Jeff, actually.
And final question, are you a traitor or are you a faithful?
I like to win, and I feel like the traitors have more chance of winning. So traitor.
Good answer. Very good answer. That is our top line quiz. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And that is our final episode for Series 1 of Topline Talks. So thank you everyone who has subscribed and listened and follow us for the whole series. As Owen says, we will be launching our second series very shortly, which is predominantly focused about C-suite leadership and how to build teams and how to get to where they got to as well. So hopefully not long to wait, and you can all stay tuned for that. Joe, thank you very much for coming on. I've loved this episode.
Thank you very much.
And very, very excited to be making this announcement shortly. So for those of you that have enjoyed today's podcast, please do hit subscribe. We are on Apple, Spotify and YouTube. And for now, that has been Topline Talks. Thanks for listening.
Cheerio.
Awesome.